Good evening, and welcome to the public meeting of the Mayor and Council for the Borough of Glen Rock for Monday, September 22nd, 2014. This meeting is being called pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law. I declare this to be a properly constituted public meeting of the Mayor and Council. Please call a roll.
Councilmember O'Hagan. Councilmember Pazin.
Here.
Councilmember Orsak.
Here.
Councilmember Serrato.
Here.
Councilmember Biggs.
Here.
Councilmember Nagano.
Here. Over the past few months, there have been some comments by residents in various forms of public media in which the writers have expressed opinions that suggest that not enough information about the proposed artificial turf field at the Faber Recreation Facility on Dreams Avenue had reached them. From our point of view, that information has indeed been presented here at several public meetings. However, it's not our intent tonight to have the discussion devolve into a squabble. It's far too big an issue. I think it's timely and appropriate instead to remedy any perceived lack of information. And so this evening, we're going to begin a review of all the information that's been gathered and presented earlier, and we'll add some that is brand new concerning the proposal to install an artificial turf field. There are a number of elements to make a complete review, and they will extend over the next few weeks. Tonight, we're going to look at, first, the issue of need versus want. Second, the urgency of the matter. Third, the question of grass versus artificial turf. And fourth, the environmental impact of an artificial turf field at this location. In addition, questions have been raised about the form of the referendum wording, and we'll also speak to that. At the public meeting on Monday, September 29, we'll consider the question of the borough's financial capability to handle the cost of the proposal. And finally, I think it's important to mention that in addition to this live coverage, the information being presented tonight will also be accessible on Glen Rock TV, and the environmental impact study, and a substantial list of pertinent questions and answers will also be accessible on the borough's website. So we begin. To address the issue of urgency and need versus want, we've asked our borough engineer, Mike DeSena of Stantec Engineering, to describe the current situation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We've prepared several boards that depict the existing site. The first one being situated to the south is the pool, the newly constructed recycling center a couple years ago is on top. The Diamond Brook is behind us, and Dreams Avenue in front. What we've done is we've taken the conceptual layout that's been talked about for a while now, and we've overlaid it on top of the existing topographic survey that was performed back when the idea of turfing or doing something at the field was talked about years ago. So we have the topography that was done by our surveyors, and we've overlaid the proposed field layout on it. And as we've always said, we have we've also, on this plan, we've put our riparian zone in blue, which is the 50-foot riparian off the edge of the wetlands. And we have our open water, or our transition area, also shown on that plan. And it shows that the proposed field, which the proposed outline of the field is in green, that's the limit of where the turf would stop and the natural grass would, remain as is. So you can see that green perimeter around the whole site, which, would have natural grass next to it. It does not impact any of the wetland areas down at the bottom of the sheet. Also, we took it a step further. After we overlaid the proposed field layout, we then designed the drainage system for it. There's been a lot of concerns about the drainage. We looked at our geotechnical reports. The groundwater elevation is shallow, but when we constructed all the improvements at the recycling center, we were down, 6, 7 feet in some areas, and we didn't encounter any groundwater. So we don't, at this point in time, groundwater is seasonal. It's based on, the amount of rain that comes, so it may be high if we've had lots of rain. At the time we had normal rainfall when we built the recycling center, we didn't encounter any groundwater up until the 6, 7 foot mark. That's as deep as we got, and we didn't encounter any. So we don't foresee any groundwater issues with constructing the proposed field. So in doing that, like we've always talked about, the dark black line on the outside of the field is the collector pipe, which all these dash lines that are running across the field, those are what are called slot drains, which are installed underneath the stone base of the field, and those all lead into this collector pipe. And what we've done is, when we were designing the recycling center, we added some inlets because there was some low-lying water staying along that edge of the recycling center of the field. So in order to solve that, we added some inlets there, and they're also going to be utilized to drain the proposed field. So what will happen is this collector pipe, which runs right down the side of the recycling center from here to there, and also down to Remus from there to there, it will all flow to this existing catch basin about 60 feet away from the restroom building that's at the recycling center. And in that catch basin, there'll be a weir structure, which is shown on this sheet. And what that'll do is it'll retain all the stormwater runoff. That the proposed field has perforations in the turf, which will allow the rainwater to penetrate the turf, go into the subbase. And the subbase for our field, based on our geotechnical report, will vary from 2 to 5 feet in different areas based on the sampling that was found when they did the borings. So what will happen is all that water will flow down these slot drains, as you see here, and ultimately collect in that collector pipe that I showed you that ran across the field. And then it'll lead to this structure here, which has a wall inside it, and it blocks the flow from going straight through into the municipal stormwater system. So it'll retard the flow. What it really does is it's going to back the flow up within all those pipes, depending on the rainstorm event. But it'll always have there's a 3-inch pipe at the bottom of that weir inside, which will constantly allow water to go out there during the rain event, but it's only a 3-inch orifice. It's not the entire 12-inch of water allowed to go through. So that's the control structure that we would construct if this project was to come to fruition at that location. And it would basically retard the flow of that whole field. Because right now the flow of the field, based on the borings, it's very compacted. So all the flow basically starts at Remus, and it flows to, if everybody knows, that building behind the pool is Ridgewood's pump station building that pumps your water, your municipal well water. It all flows out that corner there. That's why it's always wet in that one corner of the building there. So the entire field is draining through that slot right there. In the proposed condition, the field will be at a different elevation, and it'll allow the water to percolate into the ground as much as it can, but then it'll also drain into our storm system that we've constructed beneath the field.
How many borings did you do?
What's that?
How many borings did you do?
We did 17 altogether, Mr. Mayor. They're in our report.
Okay. I interrupted, I'm sorry.
So we did 17 borings. I apologize, all these drawings I have here are in the back of your handout. They're the last pages. We've made 11 by 17 copies, so you can, if you'd like to look on. I should have told you that before. We actually did 12 borings and an additional 7 for 19 total.
Thank you.
So this was the drainage design. It's a preliminary drainage design. It gave us adequate numbers to provide enough information at this point, with the preliminary design point we're at, to say that we could get a drainage system that would work and reduce the peak flows to the Diamond Brook from the field area itself than what occurs today. So we'd be able to reduce that straight runoff into the Diamond Brook by collecting it, storing it underneath the field, and then slowly releasing it back into the Remus Avenue drainage system, which wraps all the way around and ends up on Demeridge Street, which is that paper street that comes out of the recycling center. We also, so going back to the board, which is your first handout in the back of your sheet. We thought it was very important to note that, the closest encroachments we are to any of the riparian and the wetland transition areas are in this corner. This building down here underneath this note, limit of 50 foot, that's the Ridgewood well house right there. So if everybody, just to give you a little bearing of where you are. So we do come within 10 feet of that area there, but we're not 10 feet away from the wetlands itself. We're 60 feet away because that's just the riparian zone that the state has established as the 50-foot transition or riparian zone. So it's not like we're walking, the wetlands don't begin 10 feet away from us, they begin 60 feet. But that's the transition area that the state, when they gave us the LOI and the environmental permit for the project years ago, that's what they requested was a 50-foot buffer.
So Mike, just to clarify, I'm sorry to jump in. There's no relation to the wetlands that currently exist on the field now to where the proposed field is to be constructed?
Zero.
Okay, and the buffer,
As you can see, like if you look on your plan, you'll see there's eight dash numbers. Those are the wetland flags that were flagged, and the DEP confirmed they are flags, and that is the limit of the wetland area. So if you see like that, the black line with the circle with the dot in the middle of it and the A numbers, that is the actual edge of the wetland boundary. And then from that edge of wetland boundary, the state requested an additional 50-foot wetland transition area. That is the blue shaded box. And then also, if you look at the other flags which have a D designation in front of them, that is the edge of the Diamond Brook, the edge of water at the Diamond Brook. And from that edge, the state requested a 50-foot riparian zone, and that we demarked in the red box.
so that means that that's 50 plus 60 is 110 feet from.
But then you have all this area here that we're leaving as natural turf also.
Right.
So that's why I was saying the only area we're really encroaching is this area here. But one of the things we have to understand also is that there's a 15-foot high berm that runs along the Diamond Brook and continues down and wraps itself around toward the Ridgewood pump station. So there's a 15-foot berm that was built in the 80s. It was part of your DEP permit to allow the recycling and the composting to go on at this site. It was one of their mandates that so nothing could leach right into the brook. We found the correspondence for it. So there's a 15-foot high berm that continues all the way around here. So I know one of the issues that's come to light is, in recent events, some of the fields in the local towns have been inundated by floodwaters, and it's caused a lot of maintenance issues and a lot
From the brook.
from the brook, not this exact brook, but a similar brook. So here we don't have that because we have this 15-foot high man-made berm which wraps its way around the field. Because the upper Faber, the Field of Dreams, as everybody calls it, that's sitting almost 25 feet higher than the brook. And then what they did is they just extended that grade, as you can see in our contour lines, and it kind of wraps itself around to here, and it stops just before, about 40 feet before the Ridgewood pump station building. So the water would have to come up the Diamond Brook and come up another 15 feet before it got over the berm and got onto the field.
And again, that condition's never happened.
To the best of our knowledge, we've researched it with the DPW superintendent and personnel that's been around town and other people, and nobody's ever recalled any flooding event that's made it to the fields.
So
that's strictly going by personnel that's been here for a long time. We don't, that's the only data we have. We've checked the police department for any records. There are none.
Well, we've been through some big storms,
and it's
never happened.
Correct.
Mike, I have a question. Just
Sure.
sort of worst case scenario, if we do get hit with one of these superstorms that just produce a tremendous amount of rain in a short period of time, and coupled with the fact, let's just say we have an equipment malfunction with the drainage system of some sort, what impact or could that have on the nearby residents and the brook compared to the way the field is now?
It's a closed system, so we'd have to have something catastrophic that would shift pipes or something out of alignment. There's nothing to get inside the system from above, because you'd have to penetrate the turf and penetrate the pipes to get in there. So the only thing that, I guess the question you'd ask is, if the field were to, just say it rained for days or something, if that's the field would eventually fill up, and then if the entire drainage system along Doremus Avenue was full and it had nowhere to drain into, it would just fill up to the top and then just start to sheet flow in a direction, we haven't set the slope of the field yet, so it would sheet flow somewhere. It would probably, sheet flow toward the pool because that's the natural topography of the land. But that would take all the voids in the stone would have to fill up, all the pipes would have to fill up, the outlet structure would have to have, something blocking it from allowing it to go through. The whole system would have to back up.
Okay, now, just compared to what exists now, I'm looking at, let's say, a worst-case scenario. Would the proposal still be an improvement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because right now, what's happening is everything is just sheet flowing straight down into the diamond.
Okay, so that would be worst case.
Yeah, there is zero drainage on the field right now. So right now, whatever falls on the field, because of the compacted soils that are represented in our boring logs, everything is just sheet flowing. Some will percolate into the ground, but not much. So what this will give you the ability to do is you're going to have all that stone that the voids will have to fill up, all the pipes will have to fill up. It'll basically have to fill up to the top of the turf before it starts to overflow.
So worst case, we would be in the same position we are now, but an expected improvement,
Well, you would think it would be the same condition as you are now, but then as soon as the storm event is passed, it would slowly release itself into the system, and you'd have the field back in plain water.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
That answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
I think one of the key words in the presentation you just made was slowly release into the
Correct,
system.
that's why we have the 3-inch orifice versus, just allowing directly into Doremus Avenue. We've designed similar systems in towns surrounding us, and it's worked, effectively.
Just to sort of get back to semblance of structure, you've been talking, I believe, about environmental impact so far. And I'm assuming that what you've said is your engineering firm's assessment of environmental impact.
Correct.
Have you finished talking about the environmental impact?
I believe so, unless there's any other questions that
No.
you may ask.
Could you go on to need versus want and the
Sure.
urgency?
One of the things we did in conjunction with Mr. Barone, he was able to, if you look in Appendix 1 in the project introduction, page 3, there's about a page and a half of field usage. And what we were able to do was, in speaking with Mr. Barone, he did actually. He calculated all the field usage time for a whole entire year that actually uses that field. And it starts out that the Glen Rock Baseball Softball Association uses Lower Faber for a total of 55 hours a week. The Shooting Stars use it for a total of 50.5 hours a week. Men's softball is allotted 3.5 hours a week. The middle school and the high school is allocated a total of 12.5 hours a week. With that being said, there's an addition. Is allocated a total of 121.5 hours over a 5-day period. So that's how much usage that field has. And then it goes into exactly who uses the field. There's 48 Glen Rock soccer club teams. There's 65 baseball and softball teams. There's 21 teams for Shooting Stars. There's 12 teams for men's softball. There's 6 tackle football teams and 4 flag football teams that use the field. And there's a total of 12 lacrosse teams that use the field. So the usage of the field is very high. And what our landscape architects did is they took that number and they, in order there's just not enough hours of the day for the field to rest with that amount of usage. And that was one of our reasons why we recommended to the mayor and council that we turf the field in order to get, you know, the best value for our dollar. 'Cause we
What-
don't-
what's
we
your-
don't- we- you know, we've done, there's a cost estimate in there for a natural turf field there, and our landscape architects have reviewed that, and they don't feel, you know, unless there's a way to eliminate a lot of that usage and give the field some downtime to, you know, to basically breathe and rejuvenate and, you know, rest a little, it's not gonna last very long if we do a natural turf field.
What's your assessment of the urgency?
The field is in poor shape right now. You know, it's very hard. It's got some wet areas. It's got some, you know, it's got some undulations and rolling parts. You know, the clay needs some help. You know, on the baseball diamonds and the softball diamonds. The fencing is old. Some of it's been repaired recently. So it's not in the greatest of shape based on the assessment. I know last time when Mr. Sorge was here from our office, our landscape architect, he went out there and, you know, there's things that need to be done, you know, if we continue to play on it. Either we go natural or artificial turf, we need to do something different.
Lenore, who's the appropriate person to talk about natural versus artificial?
He's doing a great job so far.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Mike, you've put in, well, not put in, you've engineered as many natural fields as you have.
Mr. Sorge has, yes, correct, that's what.
Okay, so I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it really makes no difference to your firm which we go with.
No,
In-
like we said, like when Gary was here, Mr. Sorge was here, you know, we do a lot more natural fields than we do artificial fields. So I'll reiterate that again, you know, we're not trying to push the
Right.
bar, but based on your usage and in the report we got from Mr. Barone of how many fields and teams are using this, our best recommendation was to go with an artificial turf surface here.
Is doing nothing an option?
I would say no at this point.
Mr. Mayor.
Like I said before, you know, when Mr. Sorge walked it, there's things that need to be done there to get it to be playable.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I just want to add, because it's a question that has come up often. Our borough engineer, you are not our borough engineer. We hire you, as you say, you do both turf and natural grass. You're with an independent firm. So I just wanted that out there because that's often said, are you a borough employee?
No, we're
Are
not
you?
our-
In no way, shape, or form. And you have no agenda with either.
Absolutely not.
Is that your presentation?
I can continue, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like.
Sure.
What we've done is, we've also incorporated Mrs. Capone's comments for the master plan and how that fits into that. So as soon as I finish with this, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Capone. One of the things we also did is at the back of your packet, I unfortunately was not able to make boards of it. There's two vertical and horizontal lighting layouts that Musco, the supplier of the proposed lights that they've already come to conclusion to be installed. And the lighting impacts along the rear property lines, if you look at numbers, they're all close to zero. Very minimal impacts on the rear of the property. There's minimal impacts to the front of the property, the highest number being 0.4 horizontally and 1.4 vertically. And that occurs right at the center of this point here. And what's described in our text is that 1.4 equates to a typical street light out there. And that's at the curve of the sidewalk in front of the houses. That doesn't extend back, that continues through the grass and get back to the house itself. So there's very minimal light trespass, as we would call it, based on the design that, you know, it's not finalized, but it's a preliminary design that we kind of put out there based on this field configuration.
So, may I ask clarification? So the lights are where we see P4, 5, 6, 7? Is that
Yes, all the numbers, there are 11 light pole locations. And yes, they're designated with the P dash number. Mayor?
No,
I'll
I don't.
turn it over to Ms.
Christine.
Collins so she can present the master plan.
I'm ready to get sworn in. I'm ready to give my credentials and get sworn in. Good evening. For the record, I'm Christine Nazaro, N-A-Z-Z-A-R-O.
I apologize.
Thank you, it's okay. We had a household restructuring. Anyway, I'm the borough's consulting planner. I've been the borough's consulting planner for about the past 6 years, so I'm not a borough employee either, but I am a consultant and have been here for a number of years. Mr. DeSena's office and I worked together on this EIS project. His office did the lion's share of it, but we were brought in to look at basically the zoning for the subject property, which is the Faber Field complex, and to look at its consistency with the master plan. So starting with the zoning, the property is located in the A2 zoning district, which incorporates by right the permitted uses in the borough's A1 zoning district. So municipal uses are a permitted use, so there's certainly no issue with the proposed use. The borough is in the process of re-examining its master plan. You also looked at your master plan in 2008 and 2002. Back in 2002, one of the things that was recognized in the borough's open space and recreation plan element of the master plan, that the borough was a developed municipality, essentially, with very little additional opportunity for additional recreation and open space. So as such, at that time, what you did was you put a goal in the 2002 master plan that looked to upgrade your existing residential or your existing recreational facilities, presumptively because you didn't have a lot of space to go to acquire new ones. Given the statements that Mr. DeSena made earlier this evening about the research that his office did with the recreation and the use of the field, that's a lot of hours that field is getting used. So naturally, I think, clearly that's why the borough made that finding back in 2002, which is over a decade ago. So clearly the field has been used consistently, like as Mr. DeSena identified, for a number of years. In addition to that, you had other goals in that 2002 master plan that talked about maintaining a high level of recreational services for the borough, to maintain and improve existing recreational facilities in the borough. And that was in 2002. And then in 2008, your master plan specifically made a recommendation that you look at upgrading the Faber Field complex. So this is not something that has just been looked at by the borough recently. You have been dealing with for over a decade what seems to me in your planning documents a method of balancing your borough's developed nature, balancing your desire to provide high-quality recreational facilities for your residents and the community, and do so in a way that allows you to maintain and upgrade the facilities that you have. So not surprised that this project has come because, like I said, it's something that the borough has a thread, if you will, that's been in your planning documents for quite some time. So that was essentially our role, to work with Mr. DeSena's office to just check out and see if it was consistent from a zoning and planning point of view. And we absolutely find that not only is it consistent, but it seems to me like something that's been, a need in the borough for a long time. And as a mom who spends a lot of time on the recreation field, it sounds like that field is getting really well used for a lot of hours. It's no additional testimony if anybody has any questions.
I'd like to go back to something you talked briefly about. In your Library of Congress thing, you've got an Appendix E and an Appendix F, in which you talk about the engineer's cost estimate of artificial turf and natural grass. Could you go into that a little more?
Sure. So Appendix E is the engineer's cost opinion for artificial grass turf. And that engineer's opinion came in at $2.735 million, approximately $2.735 million. And that includes the plan you see here today on this rendering, this on environmental constraints, with the lighting and all the drainage infrastructure, and fencing, scoreboard, bleachers, everything you would need for this field to be utilized in the fashion it needs to be. What we also did is we looked at Appendix F, which is the engineer's cost opinion for the natural grass turf. And that number, to modernize the existing field as we see today, to put the drainage in beneath it, to put the sand basin and all your same amenities with your lighting and so forth, comes in at $2.319 million approximately. So there is a cost savings for the natural turf. However, we just don't feel that it would last, given the usage it has. But we did provide the cost opinion.
Could you speak a little about ongoing maintenance of the two options?
Sure. The artificial turf field will require monthly grooming. So what happens is if the field gets installed, the supplier provides a grooming attachment that attaches to a small tractor or like like the Toro lawnmowers can call it and so forth, and you groom it once a month to just get the fiber to stand back straight up, and you pick up any debris by hand like you normally would even on a natural turf field. So that would be your monthly maintenance on the artificial turf option. And then once a year, we recommend that you get it tested with the G-Max rating to make sure that everything is still in order beneath it. And it's a G-Max rating. You get it when the field's installed, but yearly the manufacturers recommend that it get tested just to ensure that it's still acting the way it's supposed to act. On the natural turf option, your maintenance costs are there. Your mowing costs compared to today will increase, because one of the things, if we sod this and put it in a natural turf field, it's going to include irrigation, it's going to include a fertilizing plan, and with the irrigation and the fertilizing plan, that you don't have to, you do minimal fertilizing today based on the records we receive, but it's not extensive, because you can't kill everything out there, because there's a lot more of the pests than the good stuff. So it's limited in its scope of what we try to eradicate on the field. So your mowing costs go up. When your mowing costs go up, your line striping costs go up, because as the grass grows, your lines grow with it and they get mowed off. So you're going to be restriping the field more often. So that cost goes up also. Where in the artificial turf option, it's there and it's pretty much there for the life of the turf itself. So and then you have the water irrigation costs, which you don't have today. So that would be a separate cost for the irrigation system to water the field properly. You have the larger weed control program that you have to adopt, because you don't want the field to become full of weeds again. So and this routine maintenance of cutting out areas that have been destroyed by usage and cutting a new sod and so forth. You have all that goes along with it also.
So Mike, if you compared a grass field, an installation of a grass field to the installation of a turf field, and added 10 years of respective maintenance, would it be fair to say they'd come out in the same neighborhood?
No, the artificial turf would be a lot lower.
A lot lower?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's addressed in,
Yeah, do you have that?
yes, it's in the document. On page 2, we make a comment that the costs associated with irrigation and long-term maintenance of natural grass was not deemed economically viable. Comparative cost data for natural and artificial show that the actual cost per game, artificial turf hosting more games over a greater part of the year, is significantly less than the cost per game on natural turf fields in a 10 to 25 year period. And there's a document in the attachments. I apologize, I don't know the exact page, but that's in there, showing what we did is we had a document, and it showed what the borough personnel, an average of what that employee gets paid per hour, and we input it into our spreadsheet, and it gives you the exact cost per year of what we anticipate the cost would be for natural turf versus artificial turf. And it's significantly less. Because really the only, the routine garbage pickup and stuff like that doesn't go away, whether it's artificial or natural. So but the mowing goes away, the line striping goes away, irrigation goes away, fertilizing goes away. So all those costs go away, but you do have the monthly Or, depending on the use, sometimes, if somebody likes the fiber higher, you just drag it that, twice a month. That's a preference for the borough, but there's not a real cost, because it's just somebody attaching the attachment onto the back of some kind of mowing unit and pulling it across the field.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a point of clarification.
Sure.
When the bond ordinance was written, the amount for the turf project was for $3 million, but that incorporated a 10% buffer that the council felt it would be diligent on any project to have. And if the project came in at 2.7, all the better. So
I don't think that's, I think Lenore, that included,
Right, it doesn't include soft costs, it doesn't include professional services, it doesn't include engineering, financing.
Right, okay.
Legal,
That's what the
so
intent,
really that,
that is not for,
Yeah.
our numbers, the numbers we've used, they're numbers from 2014.
Right.
We're very comfortable with the numbers, because we've done field recently, and we've taken those numbers and put them in our spreadsheet this year. So, but the soft cost would be additional 10%.
I believe, Mike, that you and DPW and Mark Barone sat down and figured out the yearly cost, correct?
That's in the
And I
document.
think
Yep.
what you came up with off the top of my head was for natural grass was a little over 46,000 a year, and for turf was a little over 17.
Correct, I believe those are the numbers.
So actually, that's still in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
That's
close.
Is everyone up here comfortable with
3,000.
what's been said so far?
Yeah, and a different question other than maintenance, from what I've heard from residents, dealing with snow, how does the artificial turf feel? I know how it deals with snow, but maybe you could share that with residents.
The field will, the snow will land on the field and lay there. Some towns plow the fields so they can use them. That's a mayor and council decision on whether you want to permit that or not. Just like the light usage times are a mayor and council decision that would come up in other municipalities. So those are all things we would need to address if this would ever come. But the snow would fall on the field, and then when it warmed up enough, it would just melt and be absorbed into the stone base and then released the same way rainwater would be released. So it's not going to, it wouldn't act any differently than it would today. Well, today it would just melt and start to flow down into that one area by the building, but that's the only difference. So it would just lay on the field, and when it warmed up, it would percolate into the ground or into the storm detention system below.
Mike, you spoke a bit about lighting.
Correct.
And what I heard was that it would be lower in altitude, in height. It would be more concentrated on the field,
Correct.
and there would be little spillage.
Yes, that's what those two sheets at the back of your package were to show you that. At the rear property line here, according to their calculations, we have 0 foot candles of light here. That's here in front of the berm. So, again, those calculations as they're shown don't include foliage. They don't include anything. It's like you have clear cut from here to the residence here and the residence there. There are trees. There's additional frontage of the houses that we took it at. So along this area here, Mr. Mayor, there's you have almost 0 foot candles of light when you get to this line here, and then when you get to the opposite side of Doremus, that level is 0.4, 0 in some places as you get away from the field. As you start going in both directions, and the maximum is right here at the middle of the field, which is about 1.4 foot candles, which equates to a normal Cobra Head street lamp that are all along Doremus Avenue.
I'm perhaps going a little bit beyond your, if not area of expertise, the subject that you were assigned to look at. But we had a resident on Doremus suggest that perhaps a low berm along Doremus might be appropriate. I'm not asking you to comment on anything but this question, which is, if that were to take place, would that significantly mitigate any light spillage?
I'd have to ask the lady.
Okay.
Again, the numbers, I repeat, it would help, of course it would help because you're providing a barrier, but the numbers we're looking at, it doesn't include any trees whatsoever or
Okay,
any other obstacles that might be in its way. Like here, there's a berm, so it's still saying it's 0 in front of the berm, but in theory, they have to go 15 foot higher. And the numbers that are shown on there are taken at an elevation of 3 feet high off the ground. So that's just to give you an idea. So
okay, great. Thank you. Anybody else on Mike's presentation? Or Christine's presentation? Before we get to the general audience, Joan, is there anything you want to talk about?
Just a couple of things. A lot of what I had, first of all, there's about 35 question and answers right now on the borough website. So there's a lot of facts and figures there. Hopefully about another 10 or 15 will be going up shortly. So there's a lot of information out there. I think one of the questions the mayor had said, questions that you're asked often, and one of them was, why the rush? Why the rush for a turf field? And I think, Christine, you helped us with that answer. We've been looking since 2002. I can only tell you that I went to meetings the year before I ran. I went to almost every meeting. So that's about 9 years of meetings that I have gone to. We've talked turf and turf, natural grass, natural grass. What we have decided and what we talked about, something had to be done with that field. It is an unsafe, in a terrible condition field. And unfortunately, things get in the way. Fire trucks and DPW trucks, etc. But our auditor did say to us that if we were thinking of doing a big project, now is the time to do it. Bonds, we were getting rid of some, interest rates were good, that if we wanted to do a big project, this was the time to do it. There's been no rush. We've talked about this for my 8 years on the council. The year that I sat in meetings before I ran, I know that when Art Payson had my liaison to Parks and Recreation, it was in his 5-year plan. So it's nothing new, it's no rush. It was just time to do this project. And I think that would be my best answer to anything. A lot of the things, Mr. Mayor, that I was going to talk about were discussed by Mike and Christine. But I just wanted again to throw out some numbers of the use on that field. If you count all the registered people that use that field, registered in our sports groups, you come to about 2,500. There are 2,400 children in the Glen Rock school system. So even if you look at that 2,500 number and say, some of those play duplicate sports on the field, some. You're looking at probably 60 to 70% of children's feet that touch that field in any given year. That's a pretty high number of usage. The engineer, I did want to talk about that, but we did. The borings, by the way, that Mike DeSena talked about, the 17 borings, they were not paid for by the council. They were paid for by the sports groups. They put the money up so that we could do the borings to get a start when we were looking at turf. And I think one thing more than anything that I want to talk about is I hear, why are we so focused on kids? Why are we so focused on children and want to do this project? And my answer to that has always been, every or most every project that we've done has focused on some group. Senior citizen housing. Not everyone uses the pool. And the pool is a magnificent gem of this town. You couldn't go anywhere and find a nicer pool. But that doesn't serve everyone. Neither does senior citizen housing serve everyone. So yes, will these fields be used mostly by children? However, they will be open for other activities. There could be a yoga group that could use that. There could be a lot of things that take place on that field. But what I'd like to think and what I'd like to say more than anything is that this is our town. And everything that we have in our town, whether it's the library or the fields or senior citizen housing or the pool, this is our home, this is our town. And every project that we do, we should look at, we're a community. And we're a community that does things together for the good of a lot of people. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Please go on the website. I think things more should be up there in a week. We will be doing a PowerPoint presentation, so there has information been up for quite a while. We're just adding more to it, and a PowerPoint will be up as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. One other thing that I said I would talk about briefly is the wording of the referendum. There's been some question about why the referendum is worded the way it is. And in very general terms, it's worded that way because that's how the petition requested it to be. Lenore, you want to expand on that?
Yes, well, I mean, as far as I understand it, when the council decided to have the question on the referendum, it was based on the way the petition was worded originally. And it was basically copied from the petition to the ballot as a ballot question. So it wasn't something that we decided to put, word it that way. Based on the decision to go to referendum, that was the way it had to be worded. So that's why it's worded the way that it is. It's not for any other reason that that's the way the petition was submitted.
I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
I
moved.
so move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
Oh, I wanted to bring up something, work session.